Going back though, like how was you feeling at the time when you found out, you'd be joining such a big show? Like, what was that moment like for you, joining?
I was actually I sent the audition in. It was a tape
Mm,
to a casting director I've worked with a bunch over the years, the Finn Cannons. And I was at the symphony with my mother,
mm,
and at intermission I opened my phone up and I had a million missed calls and texts from my agent. And
yeah,
and then I got on the phone with her and found out that I had booked it, and I was within a day I was there.
yeah, yeah,
So it was pretty incredible. It was very fast. And then, I got there on a Friday, and I think I started shooting that Monday. And so I found out everything about the show and the character I
mm,
was playing when I got there. Because I'm sure you know this, but when you audition for Walking Dead, they don't give you pieces of the script from the show. They give you these made up, they call them dummy sides. So this made
okay,
up script.
okay. I haven't
So
heard of that one yet. No,
yeah, yeah. So when you audition, you don't even know the name of the character you're playing. So you
mm,
can't, there's no reference point to even look at the comic books or anything to know
mm,
who you are. So I found out, I got there on a Friday and I had meetings with Scott Gimple, who was the showrunner at the time, and Greg Nicotero, and they told me who I was playing, what her name was,
yeah,
and her background, and then I went right to costume fittings, and so it was incredible. It was very fast and like jumping on a moving train because I
mm,
started in season 5, so
yeah, yeah.
it was great.
What was it like walking into, such a big storyline so late into season five? Because obviously, everyone joins at different seasons and at different parts. How does it feel to bring yourself in at that position? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, there's a lot of secretiveness on set, even for people who are in the show.
Mm,
And since we were shooting the end of season 5 when I started, I didn't know anything about what had happened before.
mm,
And in retrospect, I'm really glad I didn't know because it really, I think, made my experience as the character very authentic. These people came to my
mm,
community that I had been living in since, the apocalypse started,
yeah.
and I don't know who they are.
Mm,
Um, so it was kind of a blessing that I didn't know. So yeah, it was exciting and fun to jump in at that point. And then, obviously I had a little time to do some research, and I had read the comic books, so I knew who
mm,
Olivia was once I learned that was the name of the character I would be playing.
okay.
So yeah, that's what it was like. And everyone was very welcoming,
Yeah.
you know. And kind. And
Mm,
so the work was fun because everybody there's very little ego on that set. Everybody's very generous.
okay. Did you ever watch the show before joining, did you say, or not really? Was you
No,
not a
I had
fan?
not watched it. I had read the comic
Yeah,
books,
yeah.
and of course before my audition, I
Mm,
watched a few episodes so that I could understand kind of the tone of the show.
mm,
And actually the script that they gave me to read was quite funny.
yeah.
And so, as an actor, you take that kind of thing and you go, this is like it's a zombie apocalypse show. Like, why would they have me being funny? And then
Mm,
if you know the character of Olivia, I mean, she has a fantastic sense of humor. So
mm,
when I watched the show and I read the sides, I'm like, they're clearly looking for someone who can walk the line of delivering a funny line, but also
mm.
hold the gravity of the situation. So
Mm.
that's what I did in the audition, and I guess it worked.
That's crazy. Yeah, I feel like you had a more of a lighter personality in the show, compared to a lot of people in there, so characters in there. So how does it feel to be sort of so unique in your own way for Olivia? Um, or would you say
Well, I mean,
unique or another word? Or yeah.
yeah, unique is a great word. I enjoy very much getting to play real people,
Mm,
and so on this show, like she is a little bit sheltered.
Mm,
And to me, it's I remember reading the commentary when, Alexandria first came onto the show and people started watching it. And they were like, these people having parties, it's a zombie apocalypse, and
mm,
they're gonna die. They're not like ready. And all I could think was, I love the Alexandria people because they're more like the everyday person. You know, People ask me all the time, what would you do
mm.
if you were in a zombie apocalypse? And I was like, well, I was in New York for 9/11 and I was in New Orleans for
Wow.
Hurricane Katrina. So
Wow.
I know how I would respond.
Mm,
And so I loved getting to play this woman who had been through this apocalypse for many years, but had
mm,
in many ways been sheltered, hadn't had to go out and forage and fight. And so
mm.
I love that. I love that she was a bit of a breath of fresh air with a good sense of humor.
Yeah, yeah. You need it a bit light sometimes, don't you? You need that kind of personality, going through moments like that, I think.
Yeah.
It sounds like you added to the list of, a bit of traumatization is quite, being at 9/11 and Hurricane is quite a lot to cope with. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
how did you move on from all that? Was that quite a challenge, experiencing that in itself as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite young at 9/11. I had just finished graduate school where I
Mm,
got my MFA in acting and moved to New York. And it was like 8 or 10 days after I moved there that 9/11 happened.
mm,
And it was terrifying in the moment. I think the way I've moved on from it is like, you make choices. And the same thing with Hurricane Katrina. Katrina actually was much less frightening than 9/11.
yeah.
When I grew up in New Orleans, so hurricanes are kind of a part of our lives.
Mm,
And you have this possibility of losing everything you own in a storm, and it's kind of always in the back of your mind. 9/11 was much more frightening, and I was, quite young.
yeah.
But I think we make choices in life, and what's the alternative than from of not moving on,
Mm,
right? And I
yeah.
just decided that I had too much life, to
Yeah.
live to let this haunt me. And I did go to therapy. It's not, I
Mm,
did
mm.
all that
Yeah,
stuff
I'm sure
too,
you would
but
have needed it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it was just, in a way, I feel like it very much directed my life because the next part of my life was, I ended up getting married and having kids, and I didn't think I was going to do that.
Mm,
I thought
yeah,
I was
yeah.
never going to get married and have kids, and I am sure thankful that I did have
Mm,
kids.
of course. Yeah. Well, it sounds inspiring, like after what you've been through, it's almost like you deserve these acting roles to sort of fulfill, your life a bit, after all that, in a way.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
had my first meeting with Scott Gimple and Greg Nicotero, they were kind of walking me through the experience of what it would be like to go through this zombie apocalypse. And
Mm,
and I said, I'm not saying it's the same, but I do have, I've been through two pretty major
mm,
catastrophes, and I have a frame of reference for how people behave and what they do when they're going through
mm,
really traumatic times.
yeah, yeah.
So I was
Um,
thankful to have that.
yeah, yeah. Going back to The Walking Dead, what was your sort of first day on set like? Was it quite hectic walking in as well? Was it quite, a stressful, overwhelming moment? Sort of, filling in the space, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I remember very much. It was the scene. I mean, it was nice. We mostly, for me, shot in order.
Mm,
So it was when I first met the core group, and I brought the rolling cart with me to collect all their weapons. And I had the first thing I had to say was, I should have brought a bigger bin, right?
mm,
And and it was wonderful because, I just had that one little thing to do that day. It was my first day on set, but um, I have a practice that I do as an actress that I do like a homework notebook where I draw pictures and write and do research and put pictures in there too because I would like to really understand the whole life of the person I'm playing. And I remember I
okay.
was feverishly working on that because I just gotten cast, right? Just found out who I was.
Yeah, yeah.
And Andy Lincoln came by and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I was like,
Mm,
and I was like, "Well, I'm kind of a nerd. This is my homework notebook." And I was explaining to him, he's like, "I think that's great."
Mm.
And he was so
Wow.
kind. And then he came by again later that day because every time I had a break, I was sitting there working in my notebook trying to catch up on
Mm.
what I needed to know. So he was lovely. And then I remember lunchtime is always weird on set because you go into this, big room or tent and everybody eats together. And I was just kind of had my tray and I was going to go sit. And Steve, was
Mm.
like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go sit." He's like, "Come sit here at the cast table." And
Mm.
I was like, "Well, I'm sure you guys have your places and stuff because you all been together." He's like,
Yeah.
"This
Yeah.
is your place. Sit here."
Wow.
And
Very
and it
welcoming.
was
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it was
nice. Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, because I'm sure you can get a lot of environments where people are kind of off with you as well in certain workplaces, like anywhere else, really.
Yeah, they
So,
can be exclusive. They can shut you out if
mm,
you're not a series regular, you haven't been there very long, but this was very like, no, no, you're in the cast. Come sit here. Come sit next
mm,
to us. So,
yeah.
it was amazing.
I know you have to stay professional as an actor, but were you shocked when Andrew Lincoln, like, first turned up and walked past you, like when you finally met him, and Jeffrey as well? Like, yeah, what was that like? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I was definitely I don't really get starstruck because
Mm,
I think because I've studied acting so many years of my life, I have great respect for us as craftsmen. So I
mm,
see us as human craftsmen, but I was like, "Oh, he's talking to me,"
mm.
and and it was really cool. And then the word got around. He told the producers what I was doing, which I thought was lovely, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it
He
makes you
he
feel better
really
in yourself, doesn't it, when they let someone know what you need to do for your work, in a way.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, because he was definitely, we called him the lieutenant, right?
yeah.
He led the charge and he was so professional and so kind and energetic and I felt very welcomed. I felt like, he's like, we've got another good one. We've got someone who's gonna do the work, who's,
Mm,
really serious about this. And of course meeting Jeffrey Dean Morgan was delightful. He's wonderful. He's
yeah.
he's also very kind and we just had a blast together. It was like he felt like a brother,
Mm,
like I have two brothers and he felt like a brother. Like we love to talk and we would goof off between takes, but then both of us have the kind of same like once that camera starts rolling, we can both drop right in
yeah,
and
yeah.
be there for each other.
What was it like filming scenes with Jeffrey? Like, did you sort of have that laugh in between takes, or was he quite serious? Yeah.
There was a variety, we did joke around a lot between takes just because the stuff was intense that we were
Mm,
doing, right? And I just think about him and the unbelievable number of lines he had to learn quickly.
mm,
And
yeah.
and I'm so impressed, right? Without the benefit of like my background is in theater and we have weeks and weeks of rehearsal to learn things and practice them and he just had to come out with all that. So yeah, but between takes, I wouldn't say we goofed off, but we would joke and keep it light
Mm.
and then drop in, when the moment started.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I'm gonna go into it quite quickly though. I'm sure you're aware I'm gonna bring, some of the scenes up in the episodes and, whatnot. But whose idea was it for the practically starving scene? Was that his idea or was that your idea or the director's? Yeah.
No, that's I believe that's in the comic book.
Okay.
I believe that's in the comic book. I can't remember now. It's been so long since I
Mm.
read them. But no, that was from the comic book, and there actually was a story out for a while there that he like gave me flowers or something to apologize for
Yeah, I saw that online. Yeah, quite a lot of comments about
improvising that line. There's, I mean, from my experience, now
that.
I
Mm.
can't speak for anybody else. There was nothing ever improvised on that set.
Wow.
The only
Okay.
improvisation that would happen would be, if we were using a lot of language
Mm.
we would do alternate takes where we didn't use the language because you're only allowed so many curse
Mm.
words in a season, right? So no, like everything that you see, at least that I was a part of, was
Mm.
written
Mm.
in the script.
Yeah.
So no one's like making up lines like that. And Negan is a jerk, so he says jerk
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's supposed to be his character, isn't it? So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. He wasn't going off script at all. You think that was actually planned for his lines because of his character?
Yeah, I had the
Yeah,
scene, so I
yeah,
saw
yeah,
it written, you
yeah.
know, so I knew what the lines were going to be in advance,
It's
right?
crazy
So
all
no,
the yeah, it's crazy all the fan theories that you can get from the comments. There's a lot of things that people say just out of nowhere. It's pretty wild what people come up
yeah.
with. How do you feel about their responses towards it?
Well, I mean, I just feel like the conversation around I feel like the conversation around people making fat jokes is so boring now,
Mm,
right? And what really it continues to amaze me about when stuff like this surfaces, right? That's not true. He didn't improvise that scene. He did not give me a bouquet of flowers. We were both
mm,
doing our jobs that day. It was written on the page.
mm,
Is that then people pile on and
mm,
they make awful comments.
mm,
And I'm like, this is gross. This is not humanity, right? Like,
mm.
ha ha ha, let's make fun of this
Yeah,
woman. So that was, it's always disconcerting, but it's also like, I guess that's the way things go. I don't know. I
yeah.
feel like I mean, and in my current life, I'm like a size 12, which is the average American woman.
Mm, mm,
And I think Nicole, oh, what's her last name from Bridgerton, recently is addressing the same kind of thing. People talking about her size, and she's like a size 10.
mm. Yeah.
And it's like, what size do you have to be before people feel like they shouldn't be making fun of your size? Well, no one should be making fun of anyone's size.
To be
That's
honest, these days it's the common size as well. Anyway, do you know what I mean? Everyone's a bit like that.
yeah,
I mean, I know I'm quite big. I get called fat, so it's yeah, it can be offensive. It's kind of an old joke now, like you say. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It just gets old because to me, it's like, would you say that to your mother?
mm,
Would you say that to
exactly.
your aunt or your sister? You
Mm,
wouldn't because you have respect. I'm also a human being. But I grew up before I was ever an actor, I was a dancer and I was in the ballet world. So
mm,
I have dealt with, comments on my appearance my whole life and it doesn't faze me anymore. I just now
mm,
I think it's kind of funny. I'm like,
mm,
"Oh, this is of all the things that I did on screen
mm.
that were interesting or good, you're using this as a moment to make fun of my body.
Yeah, yeah.
How boring and bored are you?
Yeah, very bored. Yeah, and also again, it's like one of those life daily things that you're always going to get a comment from someone now as well about something as well. I just feel like that's always going to be one of those things, yeah, on a personal level between people. Yeah, it's quite hard to live with these days, stuff like that as well.
Well, I mean, I'm older now, and now it doesn't phase me like it used to.
Mm.
But it was hurtful when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
For
sure.
sure.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like, the line was a bit harsh or unfair towards Olivia though and her character in the show?
That Negan was?
Yeah, yeah, and the line itself.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of
Mm.
course he was, but he still wanted to sleep with her, which I think is hysterical,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah, yeah.
like, so he wanted to get his hands on some curves.
Mm,
So, yeah, I mean, like, and it does in the moment as the character, as a person, what I do for a living is I am an actor, and it
mm,
is my job to be the person and embody their emotions,
mm,
right?
yeah.
So Olivia was hurt. So she cried.
Mm,
And it actually said in the script, she cries
yeah,
as
yeah,
a
yeah.
stage direction, right? So I'm an actor. It's my craft. If you say I'm supposed to cry, I'm
I
going
will
to,
cry.
because
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
job. But I'm also doing it in the moment where it's like there's this woman who's trying so hard to take care of this little baby and have
Mm,
some sense of normalcy and
mm,
protect Rick while he's out, right? And then, this big jerk uses it as an opportunity to make fun of her. It hurts her
mm,
feelings,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Mahoney is fine. And
Yeah,
Mahoney
yeah,
has
yeah.
no trouble with people being attracted to her,
Okay.
right? But Olivia was hurt.
Mm,
And so Olivia cries,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're one and the same. I can draw from my own experience, but I don't take that personally as the actress. That's her job.
Did you ever try not to laugh at some of the script though when you were reading it, like at the time? Like, was there ever a moment that, was there ever outtakes for that bit?
No,
Yeah.
nope. I think that was another rumor that was out with that same thing is that I was
Yeah.
actually laughing and that's
Yeah, I
why I
saw that.
turned away. But that was actually a direction from was it Rosemary Rodriguez
Mm,
directed that episode, I believe. She was like, turn away from him,
mm, okay.
right? So no, I wasn't laughing. You know what did make me laugh when I first read it was the whole slap.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I knew that from the comic book and I was really hoping I would get to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I bet you was
So when I
craving
read
it.
it, I
Yeah.
laughed and I was so excited because I was like,
Yeah.
ah, I get to do it. I get to do the slap, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's a really important part of who Olivia is. She stood up for herself,
Mm.
you know? The
Did
media didn't
they
write
yeah.
it,
It
but
looks quite real, the slap. Did they actually allow you to do it to him a little bit, or because some shows allow it and then there's some shows that, don't accept it. So yeah, what was the story on that?
yeah, so we actually did several practice takes where I didn't slap him.
Okay.
And I am a trained actor. So I'm also trained in stage combat. So I can
Oh wow.
do we call a snap, right? Which is
Hmm.
like you can go to slap someone. It looks like you've slapped them, but you either clap on your own hand or their hand or something. So you don't actually
Hmm.
hit their face. And I told Jeffrey, I was like, look, I can do that, I can, and he's like, just slap me. And I was like, I don't feel good about that. He's like, it's fine. It'll be fine. Just slap me. But so we kept doing like everything up to the slap or just past the slap without me actually hitting him. And the director was like, we were between takes and she goes, okay, I want you to actually slap him this time.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to tell him because she wanted to get his truthful reaction.
Hmm.
And so I did slap him. The take that you see, I only slapped him once
Hmm.
for real. So that face that you see where he turns back to the camera and like shakes his
Yeah,
head
was real
was
pain.
real.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he was like, afterwards, he was like, Jesus.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I told you we could have pretended. I didn't
Yeah.
have to actually hit you.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's the
Wow.
story. That's the slap story.
Did like the director did the directors, ever talk to you about the intention behind that whole moment though? Like, did they ever talk to you about the intention behind the practically starving scene, the slap? Did they ever give you inside information for what it is apart from, knowing that it was in the comic book?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that what I really enjoyed about working on that set for the most part is that there's a lot of people that work on that show that are trained theater actors like
Mm,
myself, right? So they hire people who have chops, people
mm,
who have, are bring something with them. So I didn't, there was no, I didn't, it's not that I didn't need direction around that, but I'm like, it was very instinctual for me. It was like, you just made a fat joke at me and now you're propositioning me.
yeah, yeah.
How dare you?
Mm,
How dare you? So, like, I didn't really need direction. It was like, that's what I would do in that situation. It's like, you're going to fat joke me 1 second and then proposition me the
yeah,
next, you know? And I think, like, for her too, like, that it's a very quick set of what we call beats or bits, right? Is like, he propositions her. She's like, how dare you? Slaps him for getting who he is. And
yeah,
immediately
yeah,
afterward is like, that could be a very bad mistake,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Maybe for the show as well, in itself. Um,
Yeah.
Was there sort of like any though discussions on how it sort of might come across to the audience as well? Because obviously, like we said, it went big on social media. Was there any discussions about that with the team, or did they not expect such a reaction?
I don't I think that they knew anybody who did something physically violent, no matter how small to Negan, was going to have a reaction.
Mm.
Because most Olivia is one of the few people who ever physically attacked Negan,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
you know? So I think they knew that it was going to be a big deal. And I was super excited because, I did a lot of episodes on that show and I loved every one of them. Obviously, I have some that I got to do more
mm.
stuff, and this is one of them. I was really happy I got to do that scene because I feel like people wouldn't remember my character as much if I hadn't gotten a
Yeah,
chance
yeah,
to do that iconic scene from the comic book.
yeah. Of course. What was your favorite scene? Because I'm sure there was more that you did. as well.
Yeah,
I know you did. We know I know some of your episodes, but like, yeah, do you have a personal favorite?
I loved that working with Jeffrey on that one. And I really loved working with Melissa McBride. I
Yeah,
loved the scene. One of my favorite scenes to do was the scene when the wolves break into Alexandria and Olivia hides in the closet in the
yeah,
armory.
yeah. That was scary to
And
watch as well. That was a lot of
yeah,
excitement. Yeah,
that was so much fun to shoot and we both got the giggles because we were at that time we were shooting in actual buildings, not on a soundstage, right?
mm,
And so that closet was exactly as big as it looked. And I had
mm,
like the boom mic guy in there. I had like several guys in there with me, and I had my glasses.
mm,
And we were in there for quite a while before this one take, and the door open, she opens the door and my glasses were all fogged up from all the people breathing in the closet. And Melissa
mm.
McBride just started cracking up. She was like, "Your glasses are all fogged up." And we both laughed. And
Yeah,
we did one take where it was like, I just decided to do something. We didn't end up using it. But the director, everybody laughed. It was great. But we were like, that it's not going to work. But basically, when she opened the closet door, I closed it back slowly.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And uh and the crew laughed and the director laughed and they were like, "Oh, I really like that." It's like, "But we can't." The pacing of the scene, I was like, "Okay, yeah," but
yeah,
I
yeah.
had to try it because it was fun and it made Melissa laugh, which was great.
So
So,
you kind of had a chance to sort of improvise on some scenes then, in a way. I know they didn't
sure,
allow that
sure.
one, but I'm sure there were others. Yeah,
Not so much with the words, right? They're
yeah,
pretty particular about the words, but with how you want to play something, right?
mm,
Yeah, for sure. There's
wow,
a lot of trust, right? Which is
mm,
again something that I think if they say when you're a director or producer, the biggest part of your job is casting.
mm,
So if you cast the right people, you actually save yourself so much work,
yeah, yeah,
right? Because they're gonna take off and do this stuff and come up with these things. There was a lot of trust on that set
mm,
for the
yeah, yeah,
people who
yeah.
they had hired.
Wow. Um, how like detailed were the houses and interiors inside Alexandra when filming? Because they were like, they were quite smart houses, weren't they? How they were
Oh,
built.
they were big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They were big. So, I can't remember what phase of construction they were in when I started on the show, but they actually built those houses.
Hmm.
So there weren't a lot of like there wasn't a lot of furniture in them, but they were full. They were building while we were there. There was a couple families that actually lived there
Hmm.
who had to like sign
Oh, really?
NDAs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was a couple families who lived there. Like sometimes we would be out shooting. You'd see them like on their balcony, like having a glass of wine and
Oh, wow. Yeah.
watching it. So they were pretty detailed.
Mm.
And then I believe they sold that entire community after they were done filming
Oh, wow.
in
Well, how
Alexandria.
do you mean by like sold it like because there are
Like they
already
sold the
houses?
houses.
Oh,
They
okay.
sold them.
Okay. So some were owned and some were brought or yeah. How did it
They were
work?
all the ones I've shot in were
Yeah.
real. And
Yeah. Yeah.
then in the seasons after I was gone, they did move some things to the soundstage. Like that
Yeah.
armory closet I was telling you about became restrictive for the purposes of what they needed.
Mm.
So it's easier when you can take a wall away so you can get the camera in there.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
did move some of that stuff and copy it and put it on the soundstage. But when I shot, it was all actually in those houses and those
Wow.
buildings.
It's crazy. They do look nice to live in, when I saw them. Yeah.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Well, it must have been quite a big set to sort of like walk around in as well, like and get to one place and to another. So yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was. It
Well,
was quite a big plot of land.
who would
A
you
lot
have
of great
liked?
stuff.
Who would you have liked more on screen time with in the show? Do you think?
Would I like to have spent more time
Yeah,
with?
yeah, 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 yeah. Who would you have liked to spend more on screen time with?
Oh, geez. I mean, I'd love to spend any amount of time with Andy Lincoln. I
Yeah,
really enjoy being across from him. I mean, I was fortunate. I got to work. Everybody I worked with was great. I had a lot of time with Melissa and a lot of time with Jeffrey, which I was thankful for.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I would have loved to have done more stuff with Melissa for sure.
Mm,
She's very dear to me. And uh and then Alana. like she and I just really got to know one another toward the end of my time on the show. And I
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed her too. So, I mean, I'd love to work with any of those people again. It
Mm.
was a really wonderful experience.
Yeah. Are you still in touch with many of them? Yeah.
We see each other sometimes at Comic Cons
Yeah.
and
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Well, just quickly, like, how did they shoot the scene where you got shot in the eye? Because it showed a bit of, blood on that. How did they sort of, yeah, how did they work on that? Yeah.
So you actually go and have before we ever shoot the scene, they set up a day where they do that makeup and they time it. So
Mm.
they practice it because everything has to fit in the shooting schedule.
Yeah.
So I had a separate day where I went in and they timed putting the prosthetic on, and I guess that's what it's called, and then doing the makeup. And it was so funny because they like put you in the drape like when you're at the salon. I was like, oh, it's like a murder facial. And then they did that. And so essentially what they did was for the actual shoot was the shot rings out, I fall backwards, and then we cut.
Yeah.
And then they came in and quickly they had it down to a science, did the prosthetic, and then
Mm.
they came in for the close up of the shot.
Wow.